Hello, everybody. Good morning. Welcome into the Guilty as Charged podcast. We are going to be doing a special Q&A today, as you see in the description. We'll let some people trickle in. I think I forgot to tweet out the link, which is my mistake. Forgot to tweet the link. That is my bad. Let me do that really quick. Alex and Tyler, how are you guys doing today?
I'm good.
I'm doing very well. I'm wearing a completely normal shirt today. Didn't spend unnecessary amounts of money on it. Wouldn't have filled up 2 gas tanks or anything. Yeah, doing well. How about you, Steven? Oh, you're doing your thing.
Yeah, just keep talking for a little bit.
Yeah, no problem. So today we are doing a fundraiser for Brian and his family. We have the link to the GoFundMe in the description. We've done this before for Taylor and his family. AZ Bolt Gang, I believe, is the handle. And you saw the whole story. If you're a Chargers fan, you know what we're talking about. So we're just doing it again to help somebody out. Everything that you guys send in will be sent to them. And, if anything, even if you don't send anything through the super chat, just go to their GoFundMe. That's in the link in the description and go donate something. I know it would help. I don't know him or his family personally, but I know that, we're Chargers fans and we got to stick together. And so we're going to do the best we can to support him and support each other through our difficult times. And right now, someone needs us, and we're here to help.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just tweeted the link out. So hopefully that brings in some more people here. But yeah, very excited about this one. We didn't send out a Patreon link. We just wanted it to be purely, YouTube. So as Tyler pointed out, the super chat feature is enabled. So if you do feel inclined to use that feature, your money will go straight into Brian's GoFundMe account, which, like Tyler said, is linked into the chat. So we were hoping that we'd be able to react to the Chargers All-In video. Unfortunately, that's not being released until 5 p.m. Pacific. I also saw that it's only 20 minutes long, which is kind of a disappointment. I was hoping for like a half hour at least, but because Chargers Backstage used to be like an hour, right?
I want to say it wasn't 20 minutes, that's for sure.
Yeah. But we'll have to see. Arjun is here. Arjun, you're officially in Michigan. Congrats, man. I hope you get to go to some Michigan games, have a lot of fun, enjoy the college experience. I know that not a lot of people were able to truly kick off their college careers last year because of COVID. But hope you have a great time in Michigan, man.
I hope Michigan stinks. Go Ohio State.
Oh, that's right. You said you're like kind of an Ohio State fan, huh?
Yeah, grandparents and family on my mom's side for sure. So, round on the ends and high in the middle. Have at it. So, boo Michigan.
Boo Michigan. And, for those Pac-12 fans out there, I don't fully understand the alliance or what any of that crap was. College football just kind of seems like a mess. And, the Pac-12 commissioner yesterday was like, we don't plan on expanding. I'm like, I'm sure that probably is going to change once people see Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC and not like, oh, in 4 years from now, they're going to be in the SEC. So you can talk about not expanding all you want, but it's probably going to happen at some point down the road. But college football just is a mess right now.
Alex, you're muted.
I was gonna say it's not gonna even matter because like all of these people are gonna be in like a super conference, and it's gonna be Texas and Alabama and Ohio State and Clemson. It's gonna be the NFL. Like that's what they're gonna make it. So there's gonna be like 20 or 30 teams in their own NFL once they rebrand the SEC to be like the College American Conference, whatever, and that'll be it. Like, and then the Pac-12, I guess, will still have like Colorado and Utah and all those teams. Oregon will probably jump to that conference because of Nike money. But yeah, like that's where this is all headed. It's a bunch of garbage, but whatever. I don't care about college football. I was raised in the Northeast.
Well, I mean, you're a Rutgers fan, so like, how can you really care about college football?
Well, even yeah. Well,
you have Rick Rice, don't you?
Ray Rice happened, yeah. We don't talk about him too much anymore. But like, I don't know. Even when Rutgers was good, it was all still about like the pro sports teams, like the Eagles, the Giants, and the Jets, and
that's true.
All the hockey, baseball, basketball, whatever it is, Sixers and Knicks. Like it's just not a very college football area when you talk about the tri-state or even Boston with Massachusetts. No one's watching BC like they watch the Patriots. Like it's just fact.
Yeah. But it's a funny dynamic. I thought initially like the alliance or whatever was gonna include like scheduling and kind of maybe like dropping a conference game each, and then hey, you get to play South Carolina this year, or you get to play Wisconsin this year, and then in the release it was like basically we're just like winking that we're not going to join the SEC, and I was like okay, whatever. But yeah, so we're here to talk about the Chargers, of course. As is pinned on our screen, any proceeds from Super Chat questions will be donated to Brian's GoFundMe account. He is AKA Jerk Turtle on Twitter. Tyler kicked us off with the first donation, so thank you, Tyler. But yeah, we're here for a question and answer. So hit us up with some questions. Obviously, the Chargers have wrapped up their training camp. They're about to wrap up preseason. Roster cuts are coming on Tuesday. We will officially have our final roster predictions on Sunday, and when we react to the preseason game. So really excited about that. But yeah, hit us with those questions, you guys, and we will be happy to answer them.
I will be releasing my own roster predictions. I'm going to try to get it up before Daniel Popper gets his in and clobbers mine. So that I'll do.
This is an interesting question from Thomas Martinez here. Thank you for the super chat, first of all.
Yes, thank you very much.
Tough times suck. Now, if Sam Tevy gets cut by the Colts, do you roll the dice and bring him back? I will say yes. I was in favor of bringing him back as a swing tackle behind Rashawn Slater. I know everybody has this, very negative feeling towards Sam Tevy, and I get that. He was not very good. But last year, he was okay. Like, he was not a terrible, terrible tackle. And if you're asking me, would I rather have Sam Tevy as the swing tackle or Trey Pipkins at this very moment, I'm taking Sam Tevy without a doubt in my mind. That's not really saying much. Apparently, Tevy's been getting dominated in practice, says Kevin. I don't know. The Indianapolis Colts have a fantastic defensive line, so that wouldn't surprise me. But if you're asking me if I'd rather have Sam Tevy or Trey Pipkins, I'm going to say Sam Tevy.
So it sounds like
I was going to say, what's the status of their what's the status of their backups? Because I mean, even if Sam Tevy's not a starter, I mean they have Eric Fisher, but he's still hurt, I would assume, right? And so like I don't see them cutting him because he's really the only person that they have that could play left tackle.
Tevy and someone else, I forget his name right now, but Tevy and someone else are battling to start until Eric Fisher comes back.
I think it's Will Holden.
There you go. So we'll see. It does really kind of sound like both tackles are bad, but I don't think the Colts can afford to cut one of their potentially starting tackles because Eric Fisher is probably not playing until November? Like at the earliest, I would say.
He tore his ACL, right?
It was an Achilles.
Oh, I mean, kind of even worse. Feels like the earliest he could be back is November, December. So they'll at least kind of need Tevy till then. So like, I don't see him getting cut despite him getting dominated, Colts probably should have drafted someone, but they didn't. So, that's just kind of the reality. But I don't see him getting cut.
If he does, according to Jeremy Fowler, and this is from Chargers Wire's article, they tried to re-sign Tevy before the season and were outbid by Indianapolis. So there was definitely interest in bringing him back. So I wouldn't see why they wouldn't still have interest if he is cut.
I guess. What was he? What did he sign to? Like, was 1 year, $3 million?
Something like that, yeah.
So yeah, they were outbid by the Colts. They were outbid by the Colts, so the Chargers would bring him back for $1 million.
Yeah, I don't know. There were some interesting names brought up by Albert Breer as potential cut candidates. I know we've been all kind of focusing in on the punt returner situation. The Miami Dolphins could potentially cut Jakeem Grant, according to Albert Breer, of course, they have Jalen Waddle, who's kind of going to take on that punt returner role for them. And he should, one of the best punt returners in college football history. And he's a young guy, so get him the ball as much times as you can. And so if the Dolphins cut Jakeem Grant, like that to me is a no-brainer. Like bring him over, trade for him right now if you have to. So that's funny. Kevin Koenig just gave us a super chat question. Thank you, Kevin, about a punt returner or kick returner. So good timing. I guess Kevin and I are on the same wavelength. So if Jakeem Grant gets cut, like I'm all over that. Steven Sims recently got cut and he has some punt returner flexibility. I missed it though, and then the Bills kind of swiped him up pretty quickly because they have that anti-vaxxer idiot Isaiah McKenzie. So we'll see what happens there. And then I know in Houston there's kind of a battle going on between like Alex Erickson and Andre Roberts. I think Andre Roberts is definitely the more high-profile candidate. Alex Erickson is not super well known, but he's a very solid returner, kind of similar body type and player as like an Austin Prohl, just a little bit more experienced, obviously. So there's definitely some interesting players to keep an eye on in terms of returners.
I'm seeing that he averaged 11.4 yards per return last season, which I assume is good. I just don't know how that compares to the rest of the league, but not bad. So let's see.
Who?
Jakeem Grant. Oh yeah. So he's way up there.
He's way up there. I think he was like second in total yards in punt returns, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. He is a little older, so of course there's going to be some, you never know if you're going to be getting what was that guy's name? Jacoby Jones kind of treatment.
Yeah.
But at this point, like, I don't know what the situation is at punt returner. We kind of talked about on our episode, we don't really have a full understanding of what's going on there, but if they sign Jakeem Grant, Alex Erickson, whoever, I'm in favor. Somebody mentioned, like, what if Joe Reed has like been the playing returner all along on Twitter yesterday?
I doubt it.
I don't think so. Like, even when he was healthy, he wasn't getting reps back there, even at kick returner. So I think Joe Reed's he's in danger of being cut. Of course, they could wait to cut him and then put him on IR after the roster cuts, because then he would be able to come back at some point. But it just doesn't seem very positive for Joe Reed right now.
Yeah, that would be odd. They've been trying everything but Joe Reed at punt returner, so I can't imagine. Oh, surprise! It's Joe Reed, and plus he didn't do that. That's not his thing.
I don't think they're honestly going to sign anyone after cuts. I mean, maybe if Jakeem Grant gets cut or kind of depth tackles here and there, but like there's really not much of a market right now, so it's not going to come into focus until people actually get cut. But I don't know. I feel like in most positions they're kind of comfortable with where their roster's at, other than like swing tackle. But there's like not much you can do about that other than like, hey, let's bring back Russell Okung, who has blood clots. So I mean, I don't know if that's like an option for them or if he even wants to come back for that kind of a role, right? Yeah. So it's about just kind of getting the guys that you think want to play the role that you're offering them. At this point, I don't see them signing anyone outside of the normal 53.
Yeah, Brandon said he was asked about the offensive line yesterday at his press conference, and he gave a pretty interesting answer. He said that they're only planning on keeping 9. Well, he didn't like outright say it, of course, but he said that that's kind of been what he's experienced is keeping 9 offensive linemen. So he mentioned Brendan Hymus as their swing interior guy, Quessenberry, who can play all 3 spots on the interior too, of course, play center. And then, he mentioned Storm Norton and Trey Pipkins after that in terms of being swing tackles. So he did mention Storm first, for what it's worth. I know a lot of people are soured on Trey Pipkins. And then he said Ryan Hunter was kind of the next guy after that. So I'm at the point where I would rather keep Ryan Hunter over Trey Pipkins right now, but I am not assuming that is going to be the case.
What a comment. Thank you, Trevor.
What I told Tyler though is like, not a lot of people are rolling up to games in button down shirts. So
no, nobody's wearing this.
So Tyler asking this question: what do I look for in terms of offensive line play? I think consistency is the most important thing that an offensive lineman could have, and I think that's kind of Trey Pipkins' biggest weakness. But one of the reasons why I loved Jedrick Wills last year over Tristan Wirfs and Andrew Thomas and all those guys was really that like every single pass set, every single run play was A+ quality, A- quality, like at the worst. And so I figured that he kind of had this safer floor because of his consistency. Of course, players can grow and develop, but I think consistency, you really offers you that stable floor. I think the second thing I look for is hand placement and being able to fight off, rushing defensive linemen. Are you opening your chest to the rushers, or are you really kind of, mixing up the variety in which you use your hands? Because, we see every single game, Joey Bosa, whether it's the double swipe or the cross chop or the long arm or a spin move, like these defensive linemen in the NFL just have so many moves. And so I think offensive linemen need to counteract that, which is what I loved about Rashawn Slater. Like he really does bring so many tools to the table and ways that he can, fight off the attackers. And then the second thing, or the last thing, is really kind of athleticism in space. Like how can you use this player at the second level, at the third level? Is he able to get out in screens? Is he able to pull behind the line? Is he able to pull up behind in the line of scrimmage? What kind of athleticism is he able to bring with his feet? Of course, according to Tom Telesco, Trey Pipkins has left tackle feet. I never really agree with that, but it is what it is. That was what was like so intriguing about Tristan Wirfs, is that they would use him as a puller. They would use him in the screen game as a primary blocker, which you don't really see a whole lot of from tackles. So those are definitely the three things: consistency, hand placement, and like what can you do at the second level, third level as a run blocker and as a pass blocker.
Yeah, someone into offensive line play. I also look for those things. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same. We're all on the same wavelength. Goodness, that made it better. Having said all that, where did you rank Deontay Brown again?
Oh, Deontay Brown was like the last player that I graded, man. Like apparently he's doing well for the Panthers, and that's fine, but just I don't see it at all.
So I guess we got a donation is this on the GoFundMe, I believe, for David Lettieri?
Davis.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. I just want to answer his question because he's wondering how he asks a question, but he also donated right to the GoFundMe.
You could just type a question. Yeah, just type a question.
Yeah, just type a question. We'll answer it, unless he's asking that he's like trying to do it.
No, I think he donated to the GoFundMe. He wants to ask a question. So
okay.
Trevor Black, in the meantime, asked, do we think there will be an Austin Ekeler-like performance tomorrow where someone will have a dominating performance and make the roster? Well, the interesting thing is that Austin Ekeler did kind of dominate special teams in that last 49ers game that preseason. And if you actually watched Hard Knocks last year, which was garbage for the most part, one of the interesting things was that Anthony Lynn was actually, I think, watching Austin Ekeler special teams film from like 2017. And he was like, yeah, this is why he made the roster. And I think he was talking about that in the context of not having a preseason. So, that's kind of the interesting evaluation tool last year. But do I think there will be a guy? I think if you're looking for someone in the vein of Austin Ekeler, it's kind of been Darius Bradwell on special teams. I don't know if he'll have that kind of performance, but he's been kind of the most consistent special teams guy of the three running backs to this point. So, especially considering the tackle he made in the Rams game and all that kind of stuff. So if you're looking for that kind of an Austin Ekeler performance, I think it could be him. But obviously there's John Brannon and a bunch of other guys that can make big plays that get the coaching staff's attention.
Will someone have a dominating performance and make the roster? I mean, if you're thinking of keeping another defensive tackle after Broughton, I think Forrest Merrill does have a really good shot if he has a dominating performance. Like in terms of guys who have just kind of been really solid in the preseason, but then they need that one final audition shot to look like you better keep me on your roster. Could be Forrest Merrill. I'm not going to predict it. Unless he comes out and just destroys the preseason game, I'm not going to probably consider him for the roster spot or put him up on the roster spot. But he could. But I do agree that Bradwell would be the other kind of guy that's yeah, I mean, I would love to give Bradwell a shot. I just don't think he's going to have as many touches as I think Austin Ekeler did.
Yeah, I think my first instinct here was to talk about like a Keeman Hall kind of player because I think, you know, Brandon Staley, or maybe it was Ronaldo Hill, I can't remember. One of them said that like those last corners have to be like special teams demons was the phrase that they used. I think it might have been Staley. So that kind of like last cornerback spot it really seems like it's coming down to Tavon Campbell or Keeman Hall. As much as I personally want it to be John Brannon, it just doesn't really seem like he offers the kind of like position flex and special teams ability that they're looking for back there. So it looks like it's going to be Tavon Campbell or Keeman Hall. So if Keeman Hall comes out particularly, you know, I think he has a legitimate shot to really show out and make the roster because we saw in the first preseason game, you know, he caused a fumble, he had a quarterback hit. Like I think that's the player, in my opinion, that like if he shows out, like that's the last domino, like he's making the roster.
Yeah, I agree with that. It is kind of a bummer that if it's true and Brandon's not really in this race, that's kind of a bummer. It would have been Brennan and Hall for me, but you know, Hall's another guy I like, and you know, considering what he did in that first, I don't know what he did in the second preseason game. I should have checked, but the first one was, you know, 2 pressures, a forced fumble on special teams, no receptions in coverage. Like, come on, how much better could you be? Though he is a pure slot guy, and I guess there really isn't like a pure slot guy on the team, right? Not that he can't play outside, but like they're trying Campbell more outside, right? And even though he was more of a slot guy, and then it looks like Samuel Jr. is kind of getting more outside. Obviously, Harris is more like outside or like safety sort of thing. Davis is outside. Faison is outside. So I do think there is a way that Hall makes the roster as a guy who just fits really well as a slot guy and a guy you can also blitz and tackle really well.
Yeah, and Staley also said that he's becoming Darius Swinton's like one of his favorite players on special teams. So, you know, that could be a way for him to make the roster too. Kevin Kernick points out that Seattle's offensive line depth is poop, so the defensive line should show out. I don't doubt that. We'll see how much Seattle plays many of their guys. Like, obviously Dwayne Brown's not going to play, but maybe like a Damian Lewis will play. I think they have Gabe Jackson. Gabe Jackson won't play, but their starting unit is good. One of you guys put up the question from Davis Lettieri here. Should we trade Arizona for Andy Isabella? He's the wide receiver. He's got punt return and kickoff return experience, and he's young and talented at wide receiver. What do you guys think?
I haven't really seen the Cardinals depth chart. Is he like kind of buried there in terms of wide receiver? I mean, obviously they have Hopkins and you know some of the other guys there, but I think
their starting trio is like Hopkins, Christian Kirk, and Rondell Moore this year.
So I mean, yeah, so that means Isabella's kind of wide receiver 4, but like I mean, really, he's kind of a little bit interchangeable.
They have AJ Green.
Yeah.
Oh, they have AJ Green too. That's right.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean it's Hopkins, Kirk, AJ Green, and then I think Andy Isabella would be 4th or like the 1st on the 2nd string. Guys, I mean, you can make an offer for him. I don't think Arizona is going to give him up just because he can play special teams, and AJ Green and DeAndre Hopkins aren't going to play special teams. You know, so I do think it's important from that standpoint to probably keep him for Arizona, especially because he's on a pretty cheap contract. But you know, I mean, you could always call them and be like, hey, here's a, you know, conditional 5th, or, you know, here's a 4th, something like that. And maybe you can get a deal. I don't think there's probably much of a chance of it though.
Yeah. So they have him listed as AJ Green's backup on their website. And then they have Christian Kirk, and Rondell Moore. Moore is Kirk's backup. And then they have DeAndre Hopkins and Keyshawn Johnson. So, kind of depends. I assume they're keeping 6 receivers at minimum because they use 4 receiver sets like so freaking often. So I assume he makes their roster. I don't think he's like in danger of being cut. So I don't know. I also don't really know like any of these 3rd string receivers for them. There's Andre Bachelia, Ross Travis. Wait, that's the tight end. Greg Dortch, Antoine Wesley. Like I don't know any of these 3rd string receivers.
I'm like wide receivers like Steven is with offensive linemen, and I don't know who any of those people are.
So I think they have a solid 6 with Isabella, Moore, and Keyshawn Johnson as their backups. I like Keyshawn Johnson, Fresno State guy. So
Not the original Keyshawn Johnson. Just to
yeah.
clear, but that guy didn't come out of retirement. He's still at ESPN.
Although he needs to retire from broadcasting. That guy's awful. Shout out to Brett. Brett dropped us a super chat question. Again, all these super chat questions and the funds will be donated to Brian's GoFundMe account, aka Jerk Turtle on Twitter. So Brett wants to know, what is Brandon Staley's biggest win and by how much? And what is his biggest loss and by how much this year? I think the biggest win is obviously, like, the easiest candidate here is the Houston Texans, who by week 16 or 15 or whenever they play is probably going to be tanking and playing Davis Mills and not playing Mark Ingram and, like, you know, resting all their starters and like all that crap. So I think they'll win that game easily by 3 touchdowns. Biggest loss this year, I think they have a chance to win this game, but the Ravens are just like so physically imposing that, like, it wouldn't surprise me if the Chargers kind of got blown out in that game. So those, I feel kind of 50-50 on that game, but if the Ravens won by a lot, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, plus 1 p.m. East Coast, which, I mean, is kind of the bane of a lot of West Coast teams' existence. Biggest win, I mean, Houston's kind of an obvious one. Trying to look through the schedule here to see if there's like an opportunity for another big win. I feel like the Giants could be a big win, just because I don't know where they'll be by week 14. And if the Chargers are a contending team, that's a game at home. And they get off, I think, a 2-game road trip at that point. I could see that one being a pretty enthusiastic win, because I kind of sell the Giants stock this year a little bit. But yeah, in terms of biggest loss, I think Baltimore is a candidate. And I'm going to say that Cleveland's a candidate too. That game is at home, but I think Cleveland, much like Baltimore, is a very physical team. Particularly, you know, one of the Chargers' bigger weaknesses has been run defense. And Cleveland has, you know, Nick Chubb and all those guys that they can pretty much throw down your throat. Kareem Hunt as well. So that one I think is going to be a very tough game. That's sort of a really rough back-to-back game stretch. So yeah, just to be different than Steven, because he said Houston and Baltimore, which I think are the two, you know, sensible candidates. I'll say Cleveland is the biggest loss and New York is the biggest win.
All right, I'll give a dumb answer. This is probably not going to make any sense, and it probably won't happen. I'm going to say the biggest win in terms of points, like, difference. See, the thing about the Texans is it's possible that they kind of just win that game, and then it's just kind of like, but nobody's like trying to make a statement. No one's really trying to blow the Texans out. Like, as much as I'd like them to, maybe it's not like the game. I'm going to say, based on Brandon Staley's familiarity with the team and possible quarterback issues and that he might be hurt or something's going on or not a lot of preseason work, I'm going to say the Dallas Cowboys. And I do think that that's probably a dumb pick, but Dak Prescott has not been playing, and he's going to be rolling into week 2 with look, he's a great quarterback. He's got great weapons. I have no real reason to think that they won't put up points, except for the fact that Brandon Staley did limit Dak Prescott. Of all the things that Dak was able to do last year, he was really good against every other team except the Rams. Now, there's 2 different teams, of course. I think possibly from front to back, the Chargers might have more talent overall on the defense than the Rams, but I don't think they don't really yet have a Ramsey or Donald established full-time all-pro every year kind of guy yet. But, you know, I think they could beat him. And then, of course, the Cowboys defense isn't very good. So I think, you know, your first home game, your home opener, you want to kick some ass, you want to show the fans, you want to basically, you know, dominate in front of your home stadium for the first time ever. And I think that could be a game that they actually beat up the Cowboys pretty good. But it's probably a horrible decision. It is. But I think if anyone can do it, it's Brandon Staley. I do think so. And okay, so the biggest loss, I'll do something different as well. Wait, hold on. Where is this team? They do. Okay. The Patriots. I don't see why it wouldn't be the Patriots, to be completely honest. Like, I don't think like in terms of biggest loss, in terms of points scored, not that I shouldn't think that the Patriots can score a lot of points, but here we are. Oh, there's my dog. You guys continue talking. She's gonna bark.
Yeah, happy dog day yesterday. That's a good call with the Cowboys in terms of potential. Like I think that is possible. Dak Prescott is just now like throwing in 7-on-7, so like he's barely gonna have like any kind of throwing this summer. Walking into the season, and that the first two stretch for him, the first two games for them, like that's some potentially like really really good defenses that they're facing with the Buccaneers in Week 1. And then, of course, the Chargers in Week 2 if everybody's healthy. So, if you're asking me, like, what's the most important win, like, I think that's a different question, right? Somebody mentioned Chiefs in the chat. Jorge Rodriguez mentioned Chiefs in the chat. Of course, that'd be a huge win. There are always those kind of like, swing victories that kind of, catapult a team. And so, we've kind of talked about like the first 6 games, like if they go 3-3, they come back after the bye and then they win that next game and they kind of catapult on a run. Like that would be obviously super important. But biggest blowout to me, it's got to be one of the, cupcake teams. So
like the Eagles,
that could be a catapult game for sure. That'd be a good win. Kevin Koenig points out that the Ravens offensive line, have you guys looked at their like depth chart at all recently or anything?
No.
So Kevin Zeitler is like 6'5", 320, and he's their smallest starter.
Wow.
Like they have a type and they just want to be big and bully people. And I had to laugh the other day. Like there was this story, I think by Jeremy Fowler, where it was like teams are going to figure out Lamar Jackson this year. And it's like, you can't figure out 4.3 speed at the quarterback spot, man. Like it's not, the biggest thing isn't schematics against Lamar Jackson, is that he's the best athlete on the field and he plays quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, the whole they're going to figure out Lamar Jackson thing just sounds silly at this point. And it's a bunch of people who are like, Lamar can't throw. I'm like, well, he won the MVP. So I don't know if you can really say that he's less valuable. But yeah, as Steven put on the thing, for anyone who's new, because we've gotten a couple new viewers, super chats and everything from this video is being donated to Jerk Turtle on Twitter. So we want to help him out in his hard time. Or you can go directly to his GoFundMe and then ask us a question here. So just wanted to re-up on that.
James asked, do we think Jerry Tillery or Justin Jones will play tomorrow? No. It didn't seem likely. Brandon Staley's thing with those two playing or not playing, particularly in the first game, was that he wanted them to have like even matchups, and the Seahawks definitely do not have that. And then of course last week they didn't play because he felt like they got enough work done in practice. Let's talk about Jerry Tillery, because I know it was quite a talking point yesterday on Twitter, because Brandon Staley said that he had a phenomenal camp this year. And I know that there's been some discussion surrounding really like, what does that mean? And like, is it legitimate? And like, do we just trust Brandon Staley at his word for that kind of thing? Tyler, you were kind of the more vocal one of the three of us yesterday. So I'll let you kind of, explain where you're at with Jerry Tillery these days, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, it's a tough one because it's funny. I recorded a video where I never posted it because I didn't like it. But I was going to talk about the most disappointing player of the preseason so far. And I actually said it was Jerry Tillery. Now, I do think that some other guys have disappointed equally or potentially more, but Jerry Tillery was the first round pick. You're expecting a lot of big things from him. And as I've kind of noticed and pointed out, Brandon Staley gets hired, and you assume that everyone gets a +5 in their defensive, rating, basically, because you have a better coordinator, you have a better coach, yada, yada, better scheme. And so you see Kaiser White and what that's done for him, right? You see, Derwin James, and he's always been that way, but you see what, how amazing he looks. And you see Drew Tranquil, and you see Kenneth Murray and all these guys. And I've even seen Justin Jones in the scrimmage. He looks great. And then Daniel Popper even had him as like a guy who, I think in like his last article or second to last article of the training camp reports, he said, Justin Jones looks like a guy that actually could really, truly break out this season. What we're not hearing is anything about Jerry Tillery, and I'm not seeing anything from Jerry Tillery. Now, it doesn't mean I've never seen anything from Jerry Tillery. Like I said, I think the first or second day of practice with pads, he beat Rashawn Slater. And at the scrimmage, he got a pressure on Slater. So, and again, Slater's no chump. And so, I'm not saying that Tillery has had a bad camp by any means. It's just the word phenomenal. And now that's where I think that is where I sort of lose half of Twitter there, right? Where it's, and I did lose a lot of Twitter there. It's very interesting to watch everyone's not lose them as like they couldn't follow. I just mean like we'd split on that point, because
Sure.
to me it's like, did he have a phenomenal camp? I don't think so. Now some people say, and that is a good point, that maybe he had a phenomenal camp for either what they expected of him or what his role is going to be, I suppose. But if you're asking me who had a phenomenal camp, anyone in the chat, list a player who's had a phenomenal camp. Let's say Derwin James. Are you saying Jerry Tillery has also had a phenomenal camp alongside or as good as Derwin James? No. And I'm sorry, like you just can't. Are you saying that if Justin Herbert had a phenomenal camp, are you saying Jerry Tillery has been the same and had just as a phenomenal camp as well? No, I'm not saying he hasn't had a good camp. He's probably had a good camp, and I've seen good plays from him. But the idea that he's had a phenomenal camp and he's so good that we can just sit him, not give him any live reps in the preseason games, I don't know. Like that just doesn't really sit well with me. And then the whole, we should take Staley at his word thing. He's the defensive genius. He's the guy he is. He's the defensive genius, and he would know whether a player is doing well or not. And we've even seen him come out and say, in a roundabout way, trash the Pipkins and Norton performance this past Sunday. So in some way he might be be able to, but then again, we haven't really seen Jerry Tillery publicly, if you will, in real live situations where there's no chance. Like you knew that Pipkins and Norton stunk. You never really got a chance to see Tillery go up against Seattle's interior offensive line and then put up zero pressures. But like to me, it's a very interesting honeymoon stage that we're in right now with Brandon Staley, which is fine. Like he deserved it, and the team looks really good, and he's been great. It's just, if Anthony Lynn were coming off a season and he were 12-4, and he came out and said that Trey Pipkins is having a really good camp, or that I don't know who's a backup running back. I don't know. The point is, at what point do we not trust or trust a coach's perspective or what he says? Like right now, we're just like, well, if Staley said it, we believe it. But like, I don't get, like, sometimes it's coach speak, sometimes it's not. So last year with like Rayshawn Jenkins, that's not coach. That is coach speak. We're obviously hyping him up, but then, him with Tillery, that's not coach speak. He's legit. Like that's an actual like comment. He knows what he's talking about. And it's just odd that like there was such a it was such a contentious point on Twitter, because it's not like they're talking about Joey Bosa. If someone said Joey Bosa had a phenomenal camp, I'd be like, yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
But the idea that Jerry Tillery, who has not shown us anything for us to really believe that he is like a next level player and living up to the expectations, I don't know. It's odd for me. I don't buy it. I'm sorry. And based on, I didn't watch the Daniel Proper presser or hops on pops that he does, but the notion that he thinks that Tillery is really only starting because they have no option behind him kind of tells you how Popper feels about Tillery. And so I don't think he's done much. We haven't heard anything about him. We don't, if you read all 17 reports, it's not like Tillery's gone out there and had, play after play after play. We're just not hearing about him all that much. And so I just don't buy it. I'm not saying he's bad. I just don't think he's been phenomenal, because you're telling me that that's the same way that Derwin James has been phenomenal, picking off, in coverage against George Kittle, Austin Ekeler, and Keenan Allen. And you can't tell me that Terry Tillery has had that exact same level of performance. I just don't buy it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really care about the word phenomenal. I mean, that's basically just Brandon Staley telling you, hey, this guy's been good this preseason and I trust him. Like,
that is different though.
I mean, yeah, sure it is, but coach speak is coach speak. And I don't think Brandon Staley is above coach speak, just because he's the new guy.
That's true.
And he said, Trey Pipkins was bad last week. I don't think that he's above it. So as far as how I interpret Jerry Tillery's preseason, I think that Tyler kind of brings up a good point with Daniel Popper and a lot of the beat reporters, in the sense that they haven't really had a lot of Jerry Tillery buzz going, as far as what has happened in training camp. And the fact that Daniel Popper did kind of say on his Hops on Pop segment that, hey, this guy's only starting because they don't have anyone here. For me, the highs of Jerry Tillery have always been high, right? Like the Chiefs game, the Bengals game from last year, like it's all been great. Like I think that when you look at what he did in those first 3 or 4 games, he put together a complete, half of a game, considering that's what the defense, plays. I thought it was great. Now, the other games were incomplete messes. I mean, that's really what it was from week 6 on. I mean, look, he got the sack and fumble on Derek Carr, great. He also got gashed by pretty much Devontae Booker and Josh Jacobs, right? You can point to other games where he's getting some pressures or he's making some impressive plays, and then oops, 2 bad penalties in the Bills game, right? So you can call that nitpicking, but it's just like earlier in the season when we saw those first couple games, he was putting together complete efforts, right? And I think you could see that, he was, getting at the quarterback. Now, the thing you look at last year is, right, those first 4 games were really when the defense was most healthy. And then after that, it wasn't, right? It was just kind of rotating in and out of guys every week who were hurt, including Bosa, including Ingram, and really all the guys, on the defensive line. And, at some point you're playing Isaac Rochelle, like basically as a starter. And then at that point, you're kind of done. So I don't know. My thing with Jerry Tillery is that the highs have always been high, but the reason that I favor somebody like a Justin Jones over him is because I think Justin Jones is more consistent as a pass rusher than Jerry Tillery is as a run defender, right? And so when you kind of compare sort of their highs and their lows, I think that Jones has a higher floor. I think that Tillery has, a bit of a high ceiling, definitely a higher ceiling guy than Justin Jones. But, he just hasn't put it all together in terms of his skill set. And then, I'm not going to, really shit on Brandon Staley. I don't think that's right yet. But I think Jerry Tillery is someone who should have played this preseason. I don't think that he's someone who earned protected status. Obviously, the Chargers were never going to cut Jerry Tillery. But, I think he's someone that deserved some reps. And that's what I really wanted to see. So, as far as like he's been phenomenal, I'm just kind of at a believe it when I see it point, or as Patrick Mahomes would say, I'll believe it when I see it, right? So
see it when I believe it.
See it when I believe it. I can't even, you know what? I don't blame Mahomes anymore. It is a confusing phrase. As far as Tillery is concerned, I think that I think it's good that he's gaining some momentum per Staley. Like that definitely counts for something. But, this isn't just like us, gathering together and Steven defends Jerry Tillery every week and me and Tyler agree and shit on him. Like, that's not what this is about. Like, this is us, reading the reports and seeing what people are saying about him. Obviously, I'm not at training camp, but, you guys were at training camp for some time. And I haven't gotten to see the preseason. Right. So that's really what I'm going off of is what you guys say. And also what people like Daniel Popper and, the whole Chargers beat writing kind of staff have been writing. So other than that, I really don't have much to go off of Jerry Tillery. So I really am going off of last year and where I think he can project to this year. And I'm just not there with phenomenal yet. I'm not there with he's going to be a breakout player. I think he absolutely has the skills to be that. And you look at this daily defense and it can make him that, but just not there yet.
Yeah, I totally get the skepticism, and I've acknowledged that from the beginning. I just, I've always looked at like the flashes from last year, even to the point where, he wasn't super consistent against the Raiders in the first game or the Broncos in Denver. But like you saw those moments of greatness. I mean, you watched him basically force a 3-and-out on his own in Denver, where he had like a run stop. He had a pressure, and then he had a quarterback hit. Like you see the talent in glimpses, and maybe phenomenal for Brandon Staley means that he's being more consistent. And I think if he is able to be more consistent, like Alex was saying, then that would constitute a breakout season, because really the second half of the season, he was not really able to get to the quarterback. So if he's able to be more consistent and get 2 or 3 pressures a week, a sack every other week, like that's a breakout season. And that's really what, I think is a possible thing. And I think, he's been very much maligned because of his ability against the run. And I totally get that. But, when in Gus Bradley's defense, you're asking your defensive tackles to take care of 2 gaps. You're asking them to really kind of be more of a stopgate, whereas this defense, you're asking them to shoot gaps and make plays. So it's a little bit different in terms of responsibilities and roles. And I still think that he has a chance to be there, but like I definitely would have preferred to hear more buzz about him and to like kind of feel a little bit more validated. And I understand, like Brandon Staley yesterday was saying that they don't feel like they have the depth at defensive tackle to risk injury. And I get that, but like if you are willing to risk Kenneth Murray to injury and Michael Davis to injury, then like
Exactly.
Jerry Tillery
Right.
should be able to have that same kind of treatment. So
Right.
that's really been, aside from the punt returner situation, which I don't really understand what the thought process is there. Like Jerry Tillery and Justin Jones not playing the preseason has really been the thing that I've kind of disagreed with most, if you want to say that. That this staff, because I think both of those players need reps, and particularly Jerry Tillery. Like I think, you know, one of the reasons that he's kind of off to a slow start in his career is that he rarely played as a rookie. It was like 10 snaps here, 8 snaps there, 15 snaps here. Like Gus Bradley and Anthony Lynn like refused to play him as a rookie full time. And then last year he's playing defensive tackle one game, edge rusher the next game, defensive tackle, edge rusher. So Jerry Tillery needs reps. And so that's kind of big, my thing. And I'm obviously bigger than on Jerry Tillery than most of you. So that's where it stands. So let's get some super chat questions or any questions, you guys. We'll wrap this up in like 10 minutes ish. So thank you guys for tuning in. And for those of you that have used the super chat feature already, we really appreciate it. We know not everybody is able to do that, but you know, ask away. Seeing some Ben Cleveland ate squirrel. What on earth?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I shouldn't be surprised, man. Those
that's
people in the South are different, particularly people like Cleveland. That dude is
Those
nuts, man.
people in the South.
Dang it, we lost all our South viewership.
Yeah, all the South fans of the Chargers.
I meant particularly for food.
Yeah, no, I get you. How big is Ben Cleveland again?
He's like 360, man. He's huge. But it's different, like, because Deontay Brown weighs the same thing, but Deontay Brown is just fat. Ben Cleveland is like a bodybuilder and is huge. Like, if in a couple of years down the road, if we hear about Ben Cleveland competing in the Olympics as a weightlifter, like, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Who did Deontay Brown get drafted by again? I forgot.
The Panthers.
There's Panthers. Okay.
Yeah. Who they've been like cutting linemen because apparently they're very confident in Brown and Brady Christensen as their backups. So I hope they're right. That's a big gamble in my opinion. All right, guys, hit us up with some questions. Again, the super chat feature is enabled.
How do you guys feel about the Las Vegas Chargers?
Oh gosh. It's so classic that like we're doing a Denzel Perryman giveaway and then he signs with the Raiders like 3 days later. Like it sucks. Like I know Denzel Perryman wasn't necessarily like a great Charger. Like he's not somebody that people will probably like look back on and be like, man, one of the best players ever. Like, you know, but like emotionally, like I just loved watching that guy play. Like he just brought such a juice and energy to the team every time that he was on the field, which unfortunately wasn't often. So it's definitely more of like an emotional connection. And I don't think he's going to be like a great player for the Raiders, but it just sucks. Like you hate to see it. And I know Casey Hayward's the same kind of way. Like I don't think Casey Hayward's all that good anymore, but he's on the Raiders. So it's like, it just sucks to see.
I guess their other linebacker, Moreau or whatever, is hurt, and he's their supposed starter too. So I know that, and another linebacker got hurt. Insider information from my dad. No, not really insider information, but how else would I know that? So I guess them trading for Perriman is fine. Okay, I'll ask a question. For all the trades that we're seeing in the NFL, all these like random, back of the roster sort of guys or whatever, who's a player that you think the Chargers, not that you would, but in this hypothetical, what player would you trade from the Chargers to get a pick, considering the depth that they have? And I would say, as much as I hate this, if it doesn't work out and we believe in some of these other guys, at what point do we consider trading Tyron Johnson?
Well, my first instinct
guys do it.
Yeah. My first instinct to answer that question was probably one of the receivers. Like I think, that we've heard several people on this team say that this is, the deepest receiver core that they've seen. Chase Daniel said that this week. Brandon Staley said that after the first Rams game. So if they can stand to lose a player, like I think they can do it at receiver.
Thomas Martinez asked us for early NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year and Offensive Rookie of the Year predictions. Steven's going to try really hard not to say Slater.
No, I mean it's going to be one of the quarterbacks. Like unless
Yeah,
I'm actually going to look at
unless
the
we
odds.
yeah, unless we see one of like a another Justin Jefferson receiver season from like Jalen Waddle, I guess would be kind of the guy I would pick to kind of have that potential season, because I think Jamar Chase is really going to be, they have a really good receiver core too. So
yeah, they do.
I don't think Jamar Chase is going to be that guy. So I guess maybe Jalen Waddle. Of course, Devontae Smith is like the only guy that I trust in Philadelphia, but it seems like they're going to be kind of a run first offense. So if it's not a quarterback, I would say Jalen Waddle for offensive rookie of the year. Defensive rookie of the year. Like I know that there's definitely some excitement about, betting on Asante Samuel Jr., which if you are going to bet, make sure and use our link at Busser.
Man, you're good at this now, man.
Yeah, I know. But I think that's going to be a linebacker or a pass rusher. So I think there's a lot of buzz around Joe Tryon right now. He's definitely still kind of in the dark horse candidate, but I mean, we've seen that defense produce some crazy sack numbers, and I think he could have 8-9 sacks. And then if anyone else gets hurt, like if JPP gets hurt, then Tryon's a starter, right? So I'll say, to be a little different, I'll say Joe Tryon and Jalen Waddle.
So Vegas Insider, top 5 offensive rookie of the year odds: Trevor Lawrence at plus 260, Justin Fields plus 550, Trey Lance plus 650, Zach Wilson plus 750, Najee Harris plus 800. And then on the defensive side of the ball, let me get down to it. Did I lose it? Okay. Wait. Hold up.
I can read it if you want.
No, I have it. Okay. Micah Parsons at plus 450, Jalen Phillips at plus 800, Jamin Davis plus 900, Kwity Paye plus 1,000, Patrick Surtain also plus 1,000. So in terms of offensive rookie of the year, I mean, I think it has to kind of be one of the quarterbacks.
Right.
Yeah, unless Devonta Smith or Najee Harris. Kyle Pitts has like some incredible, production. Kyle Pitts, I think, is actually pretty good odds because he's plus 1,000, so he's just outside of that. I think that's actually bet, that's a decent bet. I don't think it's gonna be Trevor Lawrence because I think his team sucks.
That's gonna be tough for him to put up rookie of the year numbers.
That's gonna be really tough.
I'll say Fields. I feel like I don't know if he'll start immediately from the beginning, but Justin Herbert didn't either, and he won the award, right? So if Fields comes in, week 2, week 3, something like that, week 4 maybe even, I still think he could be a contender for the award. So I would go Fields plus 550.
Wow, they have Trey Sermon's odds better than Elijah Moore. It's interesting. I guess. I don't know. I would love for it to be Elijah Moore, but I don't think that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Waddle's an interesting pick because not only will he flash on offense, and that everyone's gonna be buzzing about Waddle. Everyone knows Waddle's name, the Tua Waddle connection. He also has that special teams return ability as well, which is just going to get him more numbers, more highlights, more stats. So yeah, that's a good one. So, but of the non-quarterbacks, I think Kyle Pitts. That's the guy I would bet on, honestly. Just as soon as Julio Jones went, that he's just gonna be a monster magnet. And I really would recommend you guys take him second overall in your draft, fantasy football drafts, if you're doing that. Not that I'm going to do that or anything.
Yeah. Tyler, you freaking bastard, has the first and second picks in our Keeper League fantasy draft, which we're doing on Sunday. And it was all through trades and stuff like that. So he's going to have Najee Harris and Kyle Pitts on his roster, which is going to be so unfair. But I would also say, as much as he was the 5th quarterback taken, right? But Mac Jones is going to be the only rookie quarterback starting and playing for a winner. If Mac Jones has a really good season and the Patriots win 12, 13 games, it wouldn't surprise me if it were Mac Jones. I think Zach Wilson probably is going to put up the best stats, but he's going to face a lot of the same stuff that Justin Herbert was for the majority of the season of they're not winning. He's not playing on a winner. Because I don't know, Fields and Lance are probably not going to play the whole season. A lot of people are kind of saying that Chicago's offensive line should keep them from playing Fields, play Dalton for the first half of the season kind of thing. So I think Wilson probably puts up the biggest numbers. Jets defense is not going to be very good. They weren't going to be very good in the first place, and then they lost Carl Lawson, their best pass rusher. So that's going to be tough. But I think Mac Jones is a decent shot too, because they're going to be playing for a winner, and he's not going to put up like huge stats, but he's going to be efficient. And again, if it's a winner kind of award, then it's going to be him.
So yeah, I mean, I would say defensively, just looking at the field, I would say Parsons or Surtain. I mean, I feel like it's probably one of those. Surtain's probably going to be closest to the ball. I mean, in terms of the cornerbacks, and then Micah Parsons is probably going to put up the best numbers, just because of the situation he's in, team he's on. The Cowboys don't have much else on defense at the moment.
I think Jamin Davis
could have to say.
Yeah, I think Jamin Davis could eat a lot too, because like that defensive line is so good. Davis is going to be freed up to make all the plays, all the cleanup plays, put up a bunch of tackles. So I think him or Parsons. I if I had to like rank them in terms of like likelihood, I would probably say Parsons 1 and then Jamin Davis 2, because I don't really buy any of the pass rushers at this point in terms of like putting up elite numbers. I think Joe Tryon, like I said, is a dark horse pick, but like that group is, I don't love really any of them yet.
I could see Kwity Paye. Not that I fully buy it, but I think, if by like the back half of the season he starts putting up some sacks and stuff. But then again, I think it's really tough if you're not getting production early, because that's a little bit what hurt Chase Young in terms of the award last year. So I don't know.
Yeah. So shout out to Thomas for the super chat questions. Todd Miller pointed out something interesting, and Brandon Staley did talk about this yesterday in terms of like roster construction. He used the example of Khalil Mack when he was in Chicago, and this time 4 years ago, Mack was not in Chicago yet, and so that was an interesting thing to bring up. And I do agree that like they could be looking at something else in terms of roster cuts. Like he says, he know what he has and doesn't have now, so that could be something interesting to keep an eye on. It could be, like another secondary piece or another receiver for a returner, potentially an offensive line. Like, I don't know what really prompted him to make that comment, but it definitely, raised my eyebrows for sure.
I will say the only thing about Khalil Mack is that what would have to make that deal happen is a John Gruden not knowing what he's doing on the other side of the phone. So you got to find one of those, and then a couple of years later, John Gruden's asking for Khalil Mack back, which I thought was really funny. But I don't think they're going to trade for any Khalil Mack level player. But, there always could be, something that becomes available, maybe a disgruntled player or, just a team that needs to cut cap space. I don't know.
Did any of them play for the, what's the college Brandon Staley went to? Anybody play for John Carroll? Because they're immediately going to join the team if they get cut.
No.
I don't think so.
Not many NFL players coming out of John Carroll.
I can't think of a guy who's on the roster bubble. I mean, Sam Tippett was kind of an interesting point. I can't think of anybody on the roster bubble that's. But sure, it's a very interesting point, though. I just don't know. If I'm not mistaken, I think the Chargers signed, is it James Jones, to their receiving core like at week 3 of the preseason or something a couple of years ago, and they cut him like the next week too. So that, I mean, it's not like Telesco's above. I think Dontrell Edmonds signed pretty close to the middle of the preseason too. In his second stint with the Chargers. So, it's possible that they bring in a receiver. I just don't know at this point. Like, I don't know. We'll see. It's tough to tell what the injuries are. Are they more precautionary? Or are they more serious? Because everyone's being held out. But then everyone can also, if it was Sunday, they would play. But everyone's being held out. So I don't know exactly what. I don't know.
Yeah, the receiver position is going to be really interesting on tomorrow. Because, I mean, Giants limited, Jason Moore's been out, Kate Hill's been out, and like previous decision-making processes would point to them not playing on Saturday. So we could be potentially looking at like Josh Palmer, Tyron Johnson, John Hurst, and Michael Bandy being the only receivers playing on Saturday, which is not going to be fun for those quarterbacks and not fun for those players, because we were all
jeez.
kind of upset about Tyron Johnson playing so much, and if Josh Palmer also has to play as much, like that's not going to be very fun to watch. But I think Todd's point mostly was about cuts and not trades.
Mm-hmm.
Craig just commented that. Okay. Yeah, I think it's so funny. Like, of course, I interviewed Kenny King a couple weeks ago, and so we've been, like talking more, and like we had some Raiders fans follow the podcast. Of course, we had one troll us in the stream last time, and it's like so funny listening to how Gus Bradley has convinced everybody in that franchise, even the athletic writers, to like buy into what he's doing. Like all of them think that Gus Bradley is going to work out for them. And it's just so funny to me because we were all in that same boat when he was hired on the Chargers. Like, the first offseason, everybody was talking so glowingly about Gus Bradley. And it's just funny. And Raider Cody yesterday using a preseason clip of like 3 years ago of Denzel Perryman to be like, this is a great trade. It's like, come on.
I will say, to credit Gus Bradley, I mean, I do think he had some good defenses. I do think he also deserved to go. The problem is that the Raiders defenses are not as talented right now as what the Chargers put out in that same period of time. There's no Joey Bosa. There's no Derwin James. There's nobody really like that on the Raiders, even prime Casey Hayward. They have, the store-bought brand Casey Hayward. So, that's what they have right now. Yeah, I mean, who was the Raiders defensive coordinator before last year? I forget. Greg Williams?
Guy from the Bengals.
He was on the Jets.
I should know this.
Sorry, I should know it. I forgot. Well, the thing is that we already forgot the name, so I feel like that's pretty good evidence that Raiders fans are just looking for anything different at this point. And so, if they see Gus Bradley running any kind of system, that will be good enough for them. And, I mean, to some extent, I think that's all NFL franchises and fan bases. Gunther, yeah. I think that's all NFL franchises and fan bases to some extent when it's just like, oh, well, we fired the old guy. The new guy is going to be better. Not saying that applies to the Chargers this year, some people. But, I do think that definitely applies to the Raiders and just people looking for something different in a coach.
Yeah, it just like it cracks me up that they all like make fun of the Chargers defense for 4 years, and then they get a piece of the old Chargers defense, and they're like, "Let's go! Like this is amazing!" And like Kevin points out, apparently Gus Bradley's scheme made Joey Bosa and Derwin James, so just kind of funny to me. But I know that Raider Cody and Kenny King are mostly trolling on Twitter. I would hope. I don't know Cody, but. Kenny pointed out in our conversation that he likes to troll a lot, which is fine. That's his prerogative, right? But it just cracks me up. Like we all complain about the Chargers defense, and then Gus Bradley goes to Vegas, and it's like they're going to be so good.
I mean, Gus Bradley, really, his whole career at this point is falling into Earl Thomas, Richard Sherman, and Cam Chancellor. And he's been running off of that for like a decade, which, I mean, if I was in that same position, I would do the same thing. Because that seems awesome to advertise that you were the inventor of the Legion.
It's like the Adam Gase and the Peyton Manning thing.
Yeah. Adam Gase created the offense that Peyton Manning worked on. That's why he's been shit at every job since. But yeah, so I mean, that's also why you got to give a second eye to these coaches who say that they're responsible for this thing, and then turns out not responsible for the thing. So I like Gus at points. I definitely think he deserved to go, but as far as Raiders fans getting hyped about it, I think the only reason that you could get hyped about Gus Bradley is if you had the pieces that could make Gus Bradley work, like we've said on the show.
Yeah, like swapping out Derwin James for Jonathan Abram is not going to be a good experience for them.
Last, I guess, we're at an hour. So one more round of questions. If you want to get more super chats in, where they are all going to Jerk Turtle on Twitter, who we are helping out, and that will all go to his GoFundMe. So one last call.
cover 3 era is over. It certainly seems like the NFL is trending more towards the 2 high shell.
Mhm.
You know, when we talked to Robert Mays, you know, something that he pointed out is like the Vic Fangio defense took forever to, you know, like really take over the league, but now there's 8 teams running, you know, some kind of iteration of the Vic Fangio defense, which is just kind of funny to listen to. So Robert Mays and Nate Tice actually had a podcast recently where they were talking about the, you know, like defenses that they're excited to watch. And, you know, they did talk about the Chargers. Robert Mays, of course, is a big Chargers sympathizer. So one of the things that Nate Tice actually pointed out, though, which I thought was really interesting, was that, you know, the first time we saw Vic Fangio lead a great defense was in San Francisco, which of course had Patrick Willis and Navarro Bowman. And the third linebacker on that team was Michael Wilhoit, the Chargers linebacker coach. So like, it was funny, like listening to that, because at first, like, we were all like, oh, like Joe Barry's gone, like that kind of sucks. But like Michael Wilhoit might have been the better hiring from the get-go, because this team, you know, like they really need to know how to use the linebackers properly in this scheme, right? So what better way to get it than somebody who played alongside Navarro Bowman and Patrick Willis?
Good call. And the linebackers look freaking great.
Cali Country asks us, thank you for the super chat for $4.99. Who is not making the final roster? So I guess if you want to make a bold prediction,
Austin Prohl.
Good one.
I don't know if there's not really, again, like a lot of bold people as far as like who's not making the final roster as of now. You know, if you're just kind of going position by position, you know, the first thing I'm going to say is Easton Stick. I still do not think he makes the final roster. I think there's a chance of it if they do keep 3 and roll with Daniel as QB2, but I think that's kind of pointless and just not a smart way to use the roster. Pipkins, Kevin Kurnick definitely pointing out Pipkins in the chat.
Well done, Kevin. Well done.
I'm very conflicted on whether I actually think Trey Pipkins is going to get cut. I think a lot of people believe that he should.
Right.
But, you know, if you're just leaving Norton at tackle, it's just like, if they're keeping 9, who are they keeping over Pipkins? I guess would be the question then, right?
Like, I think Ryan Hunter should make the roster, but then you're kind of leaving yourself exposed, because then Brennan Hymus, like, he has to be a tackle guy. Like, you're not giving him the flexibility to do either or. So I don't know. Like, if you're keeping 10, then that's a different story, right? But if you're keeping 9, then Pipkins has to make the roster, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I think like if we saw more from Tyree St. Louis or somebody else this preseason, then I think there could be like, all right, you know, you can cut Pipkins in favor of that guy. But, you know, there just hasn't been that other tackle that came out of nowhere and like really showed himself this preseason, because it's really just Norton, Pipkins, and Hymas. And then, you know, you obviously have the starting 5 and Quesenberry, right? If you're keeping 9. So I don't know if there would be really anyone else other than that. Obviously, I think there's guys you could put on the practice squad like a Ryan Hunter. I think would probably be a great fit for that. Or, you know, maybe he does make the roster. But yeah, they probably are only keeping 9. I think they only kept 10 last year because Trey Turner was hurt, and they kept Tyree St. Louis for the Bengals game. And then that was a disaster for the first couple weeks of the season. As far, you know, I will be doing a Bolt Beat, you know, 53-man roster prediction article that'll be coming out probably Sunday morning-ish. But that'll be, in terms of my picks, I do think it's largely the same roster we've all become accustomed to, but it's really going to depend on who's injured and who's not, which we haven't really gotten clear answers on. You know, someone actually asked earlier a little bit about injuries and like who's injured, who's not. Like Amen Agbong Bamiga, you know, might not play, might play, right? So we have to kind of see if he does, because then that affects roster predictions, obviously, if he is healthy. And then, you know, you have somebody like Joe Reed who's in a walking boot. You have all these guys that are hurt. So like we saw with Austin Prohl, a lot of this is going to be determined by health. And it's just going to be interesting to see what they do. But in terms of the two, there's not really like a bolder prediction. The only thing I can think of is the boldest take is like if they cut Justin Jackson, but I don't even think that would be that bold at this point, just because he has been injured and maybe it's a more severe injury. But he could also play this week. I don't know what his health status is right now. So I think that's like the hottest take you could come up with. There really isn't a lot to work with in terms of a surprise cut on this roster.
Yeah, it'd be more of a surprise make would be more the route to go rather than surprise cut. I just think it's kind of, it is who it is. What was the deal a couple of years ago, or was it last year, where Derwin James, he made the roster, but then they had to transition him to IR and they added someone else? Do you remember what that?
That was 2 years ago, and I think that was Rod. I think that was Rod Teamer. I think that's how Teamer made it.
I believe so.
Yeah, because that'd be interesting. But I can't think of a starter who they obviously can't cut, who is hurt, that they would do that for. So
the only guy I think is like you wait until after roster cuts and then you place him on IR is Ryan Smith.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be something like that could be a John Brannon kind of way to make the roster, or or Keeman Hall or Tavon Campbell, right? So I think that's the one. Justin Jackson, it seemed like they expect him to be back in like a couple weeks. Of course, the first game is a few weeks away, so maybe he's back at practice. Obviously not this week. Maybe he's back at practice next week or the week after, kind of thing. But yeah, I did see that Sony Michel is wearing number 14. Super, super weird.
Disgusting.
That like, I think he wore number 1 at Georgia. Like, why are you not going down to single digits? Like, why are you choosing 14? That's just not that's a receiver number. Like, that's Chris Godwin's
quarterback number. I mean, like I've been a very staunch supporter of players should be able to wear what they want, and I don't care. Kenneth Murray wearing 9, speak your truth, King. But Sony Michel wearing 14 is gross, and I will speak against it.
Yeah, 14 is disgusting. I like Kenneth Murray at 9. I like K9. I think it's pretty cool. So I sort of get that. But 14 that's ugly, man. I don't like 14.
There are certainly like single digit numbers that I'm in favor of, and I think like I'm just really used to receivers and corners wearing single digits because that's what happens in college football. And I certainly am not against Kenneth Murray wearing number 9, but linebackers wearing single digits is weird to me. Like Nick Niemann wearing 31 is weird to me.
That's weird.
But a running back wearing 14 is awful. I love this question, man. Win-loss prediction for Philip Rivers' team. Apparently they played 9 games. They just played 1. They won 49-0. Shout out to old man Phil, run up the score. I love it. But I believe they're like a relatively rich private school. So I expect them to have like a winning season. I'll say 7-2, including last night.
How does it work with the private schools? Do you play within your little private school division and then you go play the other kids who are going to beat the shit out of you? Or like, how does that work?
I don't know how it works in the South. Like here in California, the private schools, like, they're all put into like a certain division, right? Like 6A, I think, is the highest one here in California, or it might be different, but that's how it is in Utah. So you can still be put in like a football division or a sports division if you're a private school, and then you play that division, and then you kind of schedule whoever you want. So yeah, I don't know how it works in Alabama, but that's been my experience with high school football.
Interesting, because I mean, the only win that my 8th grade team had was the first win we had against some Orange County team, like some whatever, it's Orange County. And then we played like subsequently like Cerritos, Inglewood, Cal Poly, and we got destroyed. I'm just curious what his little group is like before they go and venture out and play some of the better teams that are out there.
Oh man, that is funny. But yeah, I don't know how it works in Alabama. All right, that was a great question to end on. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thanks to everyone who did a super chat question. Really happy that we could help out a member of the Bolt fam. So we will be going live on Sunday at some time, TBD yet. So we'll be doing live. We'll talk about the Seahawks game, talk about our roster predictions. So stay tuned for that. Once we decide what time we'll be doing that, we will let everybody know. I'll be sure to post the link before we go live this time. But yeah, really excited for the coming weeks. And, football is right around the corner. And it's going to be very interesting to see who makes this roster. Tyler, Alex, thanks for joining me today. Hope you guys have a good rest of your weekend. Hope everybody tuning in has a great weekend. One of us is going to the beach. It's not me. So I hope you have a good time at the beach, and we'll see you guys next time.